it.
We're live.
And folks, we are live. We're back. Eye on the Illini. I thought it would be an hour or two, but you know what? We're dealing with Matt Stevens. It's not going to be an hour or two. It's going to be right away. So really want
a 2-hour drive to Portland, Mike Cagley. So yeah, it won't be an hour. Trust me.
Well, I had told people it might be very, very
short.
Might be a couple hours before you were ready, and you've turned the tables. So let's talk a little bit about this game. A challenging game. I mean, I think it's safe to say that the Illini started off a little slow. How important was the ability to tackle? Because I will tell you, I thought that, you know, the one moment that people aren't going to talk about a lot is it was the first third down of the game. And I don't remember who missed the tackle, but guy popped free, got a first down, and then they drove the rest of the way. But there was a shot Illinois could have had Oregon with a 3 and out. Now, I want to be real clear. I don't know that would have made any difference in the outcome. But, boy, if it was nothing more than foreshadowing, that was a bad foreshadow.
Oregon got 3 third-down conversions on the first drive of the game where they made it 7-0, including, I believe, either the play before or the play of the touchdown pass to Tez Johnson, which you mentioned the tackling. You got to get there first before you can make the tackle, right? And I keep going back to the first drive of the game, the first touchdown, okay? That is a short pass to the middle of the field to Tez Johnson, where Gabe Yakus is in the middle of the field being asked to make the open field tackle on a guy who has NFL speed. Is going to play on Sundays because of his speed. It's not because of his size, and it's not because of his athleticism. It's because of his speed. That is not an advantageous position for Illinois' defense to be in, and Oregon figured that out very, very quickly. Imagine I'm going to say this. I think he's very, very talented, and he's been, a Power 5 conference quarterback for quite a while now, either at Oklahoma or now at Oregon, but imagine being Dylan Gabriel and you're going to get a free trip to New York and potentially the Heisman Trophy by throwing 3 and 4 yard passes, and allowing your teammates to do the work for you. I mean, that's got to be comforting. And the reason that Oregon and Dylan Gabriel is able to do that is because they have so much speed out on the perimeter, and they are going to say, hey, look, we don't think you can tackle us out in the open field, and until you prove that we do, we're not going to adjust. And that's kind of the way that the first half went down. They threw the ball out to the perimeter or in the middle of the field, and Illinois did not make open field tackles. And that's, I could pinpoint a whole bunch of guys on this defense, but there's 11 of them. And I think that Oregon figured out that if we get them if we get any of these 11 guys in one-on-ones, they're not going to be able to make the play. And, it kind of leads into my column that's up on IlliniGuys.com right now. Like, Oregon over the last few years, especially under Dan Lanning, has recruited dudes with a capital D, and Illinois has not. And that's why Oregon's number 1 in the country. That's why Oregon has a shot to win the national title. And quite frankly, Illinois likely does not. There are 2 different levels right now. And I want to applaud Illinois and Brett Bielema for the job that they've done in rebuilding this program to get it to where it is. But if you look behind, let's imagine it being a road to travel, okay? And Illinois looks behind them right now. There's a long distance from where they came. And then they look straight ahead, and boy, there's a long distance to get to Oregon. And so – again, this is just an example of Illinois being, the on the path, but so far, they are so far away from getting to like an Oregon or Ohio State or even make a Penn State right now, just in terms of athleticism and in terms of what they're asking their 2- and 3-star players that they develop to do against 4- and 5-star guys that can run all damn day. And that's what Oregon is. And I'm not going to limit the idea that Dan Lanning and Tosh Leopold and Will Stein don't do a really good job in their coaching boxes and developing their talent, because they really, really do. But they start off with guys that are NFL bound, and Illinois, if there's 105 guys in the Illinois roster, most of them are not NFL bound. And so I'm not suggesting that 105 Oregon players are NFL bound, but they're starting 22. There's going to be a lot of their dudes that play on Sunday, especially at the line of scrimmage, just simply because of their athleticism. They're not specifically bigger than Illinois, but they're a hell of a lot more athletic on the offensive and defensive line too. So, but yeah, I just felt like this was a game that Oregon, at least in the first quarter, Mike, Oregon put the game out in space, and Illinois could not have a better, he could not have asked for something less, which is they needed this game to be played in a phone booth, and Oregon wanted it to play it out in the parking lot. And in Eugene, they figured out a way to get it in the parking lot and kind of mystified this Illinois defense for the better part of the first probably 18 minutes of play.
So how much of this realistically do you think was just Illinois adjusting to the incredible speed that literally, I swear, the water boy looked like he was faster than Illinois' water boy? Because to me, there were guys that are usually pretty sure tacklers who took horrible pursuit angles. And the only thing that I've got is sometimes you have to take the measure of the other man and find out how much faster he is than you so that you can adjust your pursuit route. And I don't know, maybe even Illinois struggled with playing like Oregon in practice. You know, in basketball, you add a sixth guy on defense to emulate a team
Right.
that's really good defensively. Did Illinois just have a hard time adjusting to the physical talent in terms of pure speed? Was that part of it too?
It's kind of hard for their Illinois look team to be able to simulate Oregon speed, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
I feel like this was a game in which, I feel like for 7 games, they were 6-1 before today. Illinois did a really, really good job. Even in the Penn State game, Mike, I thought they did a really good job of open field tackling, especially in the secondary. Right, you didn't see they missed 5 tackles last week against Michigan. 5. Okay, I looked at it in the first quarter because it just came to my mind. They had 55 tackles missed throughout the first 7 games of the year. That's a pretty darn good number. I mean, like, got it. That's 8 tackles missed per game. That's not going to kill you. Okay, I feel like they had 8 tackles missed by the first quarter. And Illinois tried to simulate that 55 in the first 30 minutes of the game. Like, I don't know. Like, it's got to be hard for Miles Scott to simulate the speed of Oregon, like throughout the week. It's got to be hard. And then, oh, by the way, you lose. I think they lost 3 defensive secondary starters to injury. I know that Caleb Patterson walked off the field. I know that the two nickels, Tory Cox and Tyler Strain, both walked off the field with injuries, and now you're playing dudes that are really, really young, and you weren't planning on playing for 40 plus snaps, and they've got to make open field tackles, and Oregon, exploited that. But I also feel like even when they were at full strength in the first quarter, Illinois didn't make. Miles Scott usually makes tackles like that. Xavier Scott usually makes tackles like that. He missed them. Caleb Patterson usually makes tackles like that. He missed them. Matt Bailey usually makes tackles like that. There were times where he missed them. So Matt Bailey usually run plugs a little bit better than he did today. So I felt like the first 18 minutes, this defense was just, spinning. I mean, they were on roller skates, and I didn't feel like Illinois got good footing, except for the 3 and out that they got after Luke threw the pick, the mind-numbing pick that I don't understand. Like, I guess Luke was trying to simulate a punt, or he just didn't understand the coverage, as Brett Bielema said, because that was an arm punt that the Oregon guy just near fair caught. So I'm struggling to find answers on this one because I felt like, again, short of the second half against Purdue, and maybe the first half today, Illinois' defense has been pretty solid. And they really haven't, they've since coming out of that bye week, there's something going on here, and the tackling is not on point, and the assignments aren't on point. And now you're starting to get injuries, and you're starting to play guys that probably you weren't counting on August 1st. So, if November is to be a month to be remembered, as Brett Bielema always talks about, you're going to have to get a whole lot better on that side of the ball, especially at the start of games. And it was just it was a little bit confounding as to why Illinois started out the first 18 minutes of this game the way they did. And you combine that with Oregon being the number 1 team in the country, and you can kind of now at that point see why Illinois was down 21-0, like, in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, and they had their opportunities, but there's just no room for mistakes when you're playing a team as talented as what as what Oregon is, and I'm blanking on the name of the defensive the outside rusher for Penn State who just dominated with his speed.
Right, Abdul Carter.
Yes, and I felt like I was watching a bunch of Abdul Carters out there with the overall speed. I don't think they're as big as Penn State. I'm not certain.
No, they're not.
But they're faster. They're faster than anybody, and maybe even faster than Ohio State. I mean, that team is fast.
Well, they go to. I mean, look, like the fact of the matter is, I wrote about it in the column. Like they go to Texas, they go to Florida, and they go to California to go get nothing other than speed. That's where that's their speed clinic. Is we go to California, we go to Texas, and we go to Florida, because high school football here in the state of Oregon stinks. And they've known that for the better part of 4 decades now here in Eugene. So this national brand has gone to those places to go get speed, and you saw it in their. I would say they're 22 on defense, because I think their second string on defense is just as fast or just not as experienced. And so it's why Oregon was able to beat Ohio State right here at Autzen Stadium, and it's why they were able to jump all over an Illinois team that was a little bit shell-shocked in the first quarter, and you could see why.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, we talked about this with Kedrick. I get tired of so many people always blaming their team, like, oh, our coaches stink or our players stink. I just thought today Oregon was the better team. Now, I'm not saying that Illinois couldn't have done things better. That's a different argument. But I had a hard time putting together a scenario, barring an injury to Dylan Gabriel. I had a hard time putting together a scenario that Oregon would lose this game. And I didn't think that was a knock on the Illini at all. I thought it was more accolades for how good the Oregon team is.
I mean, Mike, you want me to go there? Our Aaron Henry thread is stupid. If you want me to call out subscribers right now, I am happy to do it on that thread. Our fire Aaron Henry thread is stupid. It's absolutely stupid. It's stupid for 2 reasons. One is that I feel like Illinois has played 2 poor halves of football in 8 games. In the second half against Purdue and the first half here in Eugene. It is so unbelievably better than it was last year, and Aaron Henry's first year as a defensive coordinator. And then you add into the fact that Brett Bielema has known Aaron Henry since he was 16 years old, and he's told everybody about as clearly as day as he possibly can that I'm not firing Aaron Henry. So the Aaron Henry thread that is currently on our board is stupid. It's absolutely stupid. And so, look, Aaron Henry needs to put his players probably in better and more advantageous situations. Again, like Gabe Yakus doesn't need to be trying to tackle Tez Johnson in the middle of the field, and that's why it's a 30-plus yard touchdown at 7-0 Oregon. But I understood the idea of trying to keep Oregon in front of you and maybe trying to get off the field on third down. Problem with that theory was Illinois didn't get off the field on third down.
Right.
Oregon was 4 for 4 on third down. The epitome of all that was when Oregon, I think in the second half, if I'm not mistaken, or either it was close to the first half. It's kind of all sinking in at this point. Oregon's got 3rd and 16 near midfield. Illinois can get off the field. They can probably score and then make this at least to the committee, college football committee, a competitive football game. Oregon gets 16 yards on that 3rd and 17 on a screen pass, and then they get the first down. That was backbreaking. And 2 defensive players that we got today said it was backbreaking. It can't happen. But that's not Aaron Henry dialing something up that, he didn't fall asleep on 3rd and 16 or 3rd and 17. He wants to keep everybody in front of him. And if Illinois makes open field tackles, Aaron Henry looks great. Illinois didn't make open field tackles, and Aaron Henry looks like, doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And so, again, I'm trying to figure out, and on the third level of this thing, which continues to happen, the Aaron Henry threat is stupid because Brett Bielema also mentioned that Illinois had, 2 really advantageous situations in the red zone on offense and came away with a grand total of 0 points. You cannot do that against the number 1 team in the country. Those are 2-point plays that have to be executed properly. You have to be able to get, touchdowns. You cannot get stalled there. You cannot go without points when you get it deep in Oregon territory against the number 1 team in the country. That was not going to work. And I'm here to tell you, look, everybody comes away with this trying to figure out what happened before they go to Minnesota. It's not just on Aaron Henry, but I can promise you that the guy that makes almost $7 million a year in the Smith Center is not going to fire his defensive coordinator, period. End of story. It's not going to happen. More or less because the head coach at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign thinks the defensive coordinator in year 2 has done an unbelievably better job than he did in year 1. So that threat is stupid and it needs to stop. Like, I'm just telling you. And so I don't think Illinois comes away from Eugene thinking that Aaron Henry is really bad at his job. I think Illinois comes away from Eugene going, we didn't tackle well, we didn't pressure Dylan Gabriel. The one thing I will contest with the head coach is that he suggested to us that Dylan Gabriel was just not going to allow Illinois to sack him. I'm sorry. There are times that Dylan Gabriel just sat back there and waited for guys to come open and then went, no, nobody's open. I'm just going to dump it off in the middle of the field. I felt that way, at least, especially when Illinois rushed 3. Again, I understand the idea. I understand. Try to keep everybody in front of you. Hope that Dylan Gabriel makes a mistake because he will throw you a couple if you let him. He just didn't today. He did not put the football in situations where until the second half where Illinois could get turnovers. And then when they did, I thought Illinois made it a much more competitive football game in the second half defensively. And people need to understand something. Illinois outscored Oregon 6-0 in the third quarter. And that's not – I'm not trying to I'm not trying to do stuff that's going to roll people's eyes. But Oregon did not sub their starters out after halftime. Like they played the same scheme. They played the same 22 on offense that they were top 22 on offense that they were playing before. And Illinois made adjustments after halftime that looked a heck of a lot better coming out of the tunnel in the third quarter than they did coming out of the tunnel in the first quarter. So give the defense a lot of credit for at least making this look like it could have been a competitive situation late in the game. I felt like if, Illinois could have somehow gotten this to 35-16, maybe even 35-23 by the end of this game, the CFP committee, which doesn't watch every game or God knows doesn't remember every game by the time the final selections are revealed, going to go, oh, well, you were competitive. That's good. Your losses are to 1 and 3 right now, and you competitive in this game. Illinois wasn't competitive in this game, and I feel like that has a lot to do with Oregon being supremely more talented than Illinois, but it also has to do with the fact that Oregon was supremely talented, and Illinois probably didn't play great, and that combination leads it to be 35-3 at halftime.
Yes, well, and I do think there was a challenge with a lot of what was going on with the Illini defense. I thought the Illini offense struggled the whole game, and I don't know that that surprised anybody. But Luke Altmaier's getting hit too often, and he seemed to be a little rattled. Again, not a horrible game, but not a good game. Especially they needed to be able to provide some points, and they just weren't able to do it. And I know, on that fourth down play, it was surprising to me because maybe Oregon was trying to bait them into something, but they had to look like the left center and guard gap were wide open, and I was just shocked they didn't keep the ball on the ground, but. What do I know?
Look, Illinois is not capable and not set up to, throw their way back into a game. And that's essentially what the first quarter forced them to do. Luke Altmaier at that point is going to be under duress because Oregon has very, very fast edge rushers and they're going to come. And then and Tosh Leopold is going to put his rabbits package on the field, which is basically 4 edge rushers and no D tackles, and say, go get the quarterback. And Josh Kreutz, I thought had a really decent game from what I saw, especially in the run game, because I thought they ran it through the A-gap pretty well and also did a whole lot of counter stuff that was pretty good, especially with Aiden Lawfrey. But I didn't feel like the pass protection was on point, only because Oregon's just pinning their ears back and firing. And at that point, Luke missed some stuff. I'm going to be honest with you, 9 didn't play his best game. And what did I tell you guys on the Illini Sports Spectacular? Your stars have got to play great. Your secondary pieces have got to play really, really well, and you've got to get a performance out of somebody you weren't expecting. Their stars didn't play great, and you didn't get a secondary performance out of anybody that was worthwhile at that point. And you probably got the third thing out of like a Tyson Rooks or somebody else that's making plays in the second half. So, and a Khalil Valentine who gets his first touchdown in his career. So you got the third part. Your stars didn't play great, and your complementary pieces didn't have above averages games either. So I really think that Illinois, the line was 21 for a reason, and Oregon is just significantly better than Illinois right now, and you have to force Illinois to come back down to your level either with turnovers or the ability to kind of get Oregon in a deficit. I thought Illinois gets an early lead. This game's completely different. If Illinois gets off the field, Illinois' defense gets off the field on that first drive, maybe this game's different. Momentum is a thing in football. The fact that Oregon was 3-3 on their first drive and they made it 7-0, and then Illinois goes 3-and-out. I'm sitting here and I'm going, oh, this is not good, because when it snowballs and it's a team like Oregon, that's what happens. 35-3 at the half happens, and when you're Illinois, and that's just the reality of it right now. Illinois needs to start recruiting more dudes with a capital D, so they can compete with an Oregon. Because here's the crux of this whole thing, Mike, is that we can talk about this all we want to and go, well, Illinois is not there yet. It's a rebuilding thing, and I completely agree. But the minute that Oregon entered this conference, Mike, it became duck hunting season. Like, you knew they were going to be at the top level of this conference. And you got to start hunting them, and you got to start recruiting guys that are going to go and are they're going to be capable of going and beating Oregon. If you're Illinois, you have to have that mentality. You have to start recruiting dudes that are capable of going into Columbus and beating Ohio State. You have to start recruiting dudes that are capable of going into Happy Valley and beating Penn State. Illinois is not there yet. And we all know that Illinois is not there yet, because we can look at the recruiting stuff and we can look at the portal stuff and go, here's where Oregon is. Here's where Illinois is, and it's not at the same tier. So when those teams meet up in 2024 in Eugene, Oregon, one of the toughest places to play, Illinois needs a lot of things to go right to pull that off, and none of it went right in the first 18 minutes, and suddenly it's 28-3.
Yeah, and I think it ultimately comes down to and look, thankfully there was a second group or second plane that went that had a lot of Illinois boosters, and hopefully these boosters got a chance to see that the path that has been traveled the 4 years Brett Bielema has been here has been substantial. And then the other half is I hope they also figured out that the road forward is substantial, and they need to do something to make sure that this team ends up in a place where they can they're in a place where they get some more dollars, because when you hear that Oregon's got 20 to 23 million and Illinois has 3 million, that means you're going to have to fundraise more money if you want to win. And it's not fair. Life isn't what life is what it is. But right now, the Oregons, the Ohio States are putting an awful lot of money in winning. Now, Illinois is never going to reach parity with that. I get it. But they've got to try to find a way to give their football coach a little bit more of a chance to win. And if you want to win in football, it comes down to physical talent.
Yeah, and let me cut you off quickly, Mike, is that if I'm Brett Bielema today, I'm glad those people that you're describing saw that. I'm glad they saw what number one in the country looks like. If I'm Brett Bielema, I'm telling them that on the plane going home. I'm getting on that plane before it takes off, and I'm saying, I'm glad you all saw that, because that's what number one in the country looks like. That's what a Big Ten champion looks like, and that's where I want to go. And I think I can get there. And sometimes, Mike, you need to see it. Physically see it. And I'm talking about two different things. One, you need to see what that looks like. You need to see what number one in the country looks like if you're a booster. And quite frankly, Mike, if you're an Illinois player, you have to see what that Oregon speed looks like. You can't simulate it. You have to get on the field and see it so you can stop it, so you can make that tackle, so you can make those plays. Illinois, Brett Bielema talked about, I don't think I got this team properly prepared. Buddy, I don't know if you could have until you got on the field and saw if you're 22 on defense, your first string and second string were going to be able to make plays on these guys. And now here's we're at the 25-minute mark, and I'm going to get out of here. But here's the crux of this whole thing. Now, here's where the season lies at this point. We got to figure out, if you're Brett Bielema, you get on the plane and you figure out, is Pat Bryant healthy? We like that is a total key to this offense right now. Is our number one playmaker in the pass game. If it's not Zachary Franklin, it's Pat Bryant. Is he healthy? Because he did not look good, coming out of the locker room. He went straight to the locker room. Brett Bielema said he had no update on any of the guys that got hurt, but he knows that it's a head injury with Pat Bryant, and we'll see where it goes. But look, I mean, that's a significant.
So we've been touting this receiver core as being deep, and now it's going to be time to be honest, as Urban Meyer says, next man up, right?
Yeah, but there's no next man up that's comparable to what Pat Bryant can provide. Like, let's just be honest about it. Like, that's a significant enough injury that after what happened today and the confidence that the Gophers have today, that's a problem. Okay. So you got to figure that out. You got to figure out who's healthy in your secondary right now. Because here's like I said it, everybody said it before this game kicked off, and then the game kicks off and everybody kind of goes, oh, I don't feel good about this. But nothing changed from Thursday to today. Okay. About November. Brett Bielema talks all the time. I'm going to write it on a line, guys. November is the month to remember. He's big on November. Well, November in 2023 stunk. In 2022, it was worse. And I don't think he feels good about either one of those years. And Illinois, if they're going to do something spectacular in this season, they have the chance to go 4-0 in the month of November, because they're going to be favored against Minnesota. They're going to be favored against Michigan State. They're going to be favored against Rutgers, and they're going to be favored against Northwestern. That is 10-2, folks. If Vegas is to be believed. So in order to do that, though, you got to make sure who's healthy, and you got to fix these problems, because you're not going to see an Oregon speed, but you can't let, I'm going to quote Brett Bielema, we cannot let Oregon beat us twice. And I think that is so spot on, trying to figure out how to rally from this. Is that these are the kind of games now, Mike, where you get so shell-shocked and your head spinning for an entire week that Minnesota scores 48 points today against a Maryland team, I think, and now they've got confidence and they're coming to Champaign, and PJ's never beat Brett, and Brett's never lost to Minnesota, period. They think that they can knock Illinois off. Maybe this is a trap game for Illinois. You show who you are at this point. And so I think we have a lot of questions entering Monday for preparation of Minnesota, on this beat about, is Pat Bryant healthy? How's Luke Altmaier doing after, a shaky performance? How's this defense after a shaky performance? Is everybody in the secondary healthy? I mean, you saw the difference, Mike. I'm going to point this out, on a feature you're going to see on Sunday about the Illinois defense and tackling. I'll point it out to you, Mike. The touchdown run, okay, where Whittington just absolutely trucks Miles Scott. Not going to talk about that. Miles Scott is standing on the goal line. I got news for everybody. That kid was going to score no matter what Miles Scott did.
Right.
Unfortunately, that young man in orange and white is going to be on a whole lot of highlights, and I feel bad for him, but I'll give him a whole lot of credit. He stood in front of us and talked afterwards today. That kid's got a lot of stones to do that. After that play is going to be on every highlight reel known to God's green earth in the United States of America. That's not my point. My point is, Mike, what happened in the play before that? Matt Bailey's helmet pops off, okay, and he's got to go sit and stand next to Aaron Henry. What does Will Stein, the offensive coordinator at Oregon, do? He does a simple gap play through the A gap, because guess what? Number 7 in a white jersey is not there anymore. And he just runs unabated until he gets to the goal line and Miles Scott. So I'm thinking number 7 might have filled that hole. Number 7 might have filled that gap in the run, and maybe Oregon doesn't get a touchdown right there. So those are the things that Illinois' defense has got to figure out is that how do we get our guys on the same page every play of this game? Because when Mac Rasitic goes into that game and he's not filling the gap that Matt Bailey should have filled, that's the kind of things that happen. A 18 to 20 yard touchdown run just like that, because that's what elite teams do. That's what elite coaches do. That's what elite players do. Sometimes it's just that easy of a matchup game. And so Illinois has got to regroup. and they've got to figure out a way to go 1-0 on November 2nd. Because, Mike, if they go 1-0 on November 2nd, you're going to hear their name called on election night when ESPN does the show. And at that point, Illinois, I think, still in the college football playoff discussion. At the possibility of being 10-2 with their only losses being Penn State and Oregon. Nothing changed from when I talked to you about this after the Michigan game to today in that regard, because I guess I picked Illinois to lose 31-10 today. So I didn't think that unless Illinois pulled off what would have probably been the biggest upset in the program's modern day history, coming into Autzen Stadium and winning, that Illinois was going to be anything other than 6-2 coming out of this game. And they still have a shot to be 10-2. So, I'm going to leave you with that, is that I think Illinois still has so much more on the table, especially when you consider the way that November ended in 2022 and November ended in 2023. These guys don't want to go through that again for a third straight year. And I know darn good and well, because he's made his career off of winning Big Ten titles because he dominated the final month of the season. Brett Bielema doesn't want to go through a third straight year where they are just they absolutely crumble in the final month of the season. So we're going to learn a lot about what Illinois is in the final month of this 2024 season.
So, quick 2-minute answer. You've seen two of the three best teams in the Big Ten live. Mm-hmm. What order is it? Oregon, Penn State, or Penn State, Oregon?
I like Oregon, Penn State as the order, because I think Oregon has more speed, and I think Oregon is set up defensively to handle anybody. I don't know if Penn State has enough speed on offense, especially on the perimeter, or on defense on the perimeter, to handle Oregon's speed. I fully expect the number one, if they continue to roll like this, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, Oregon to roll into Indianapolis, and then I think, again, Mike, what did I tell you guys in the summer months? I thought Oregon and Ohio State were going to play 3 times this year. I think Oregon and Ohio State are going to play 3 times this year. I think
is Indiana going to be able to match up with Ohio State?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
because, boy, they've only got one tough game on their schedule.
My problem with that game, Mike, quickly, is I believe it's in Columbus, yes. and that's going to be a problem. Beating Ohio State in the shoe when they're properly prepared for an IU team is going to be a problem, because I think they thought they could walk through Nebraska today, and they almost got clipped. I don't think they're going to think they're going to walk, especially with the comments that Sig's been making all year long, and for the last 5 months since he took the freaking job at Indiana. I don't think Ohio State's going to walk in there sleepwalking through Indiana. And if Ohio State can put it to Indiana, I think they're gonna. But I think Ohio State and Oregon are going to play 3, because I think Ohio State's going to beat Penn State too, because I think they just have more dudes. And I think that, I know you have an issue with Ryan Day. I think Ryan Day is just as capable a coach as James Franklin to win a game like that. And I think that I think there's also an added element to Penn State believes they can beat Ohio State. Ohio State knows they can beat Penn State, and there's an element to that. So I think Oregon and Ohio State are going to play 3 times. I think they're going to play in Indy, and I think they're going to play in the playoff again. And that's what the top tier of the Big Ten looks like right now. I don't even think Penn State. They keep winning, and look, you're going to see if I had a top 25 ballot column come out. There are teams, Mike, nationally where I don't know what to do with them because they just keep winning. Specifically BYU, specifically Iowa State, specifically teams like Clemson, where I don't think they're great, but they keep winning. So what do I do with them, right? Yeah. And so I think the top tier of the Big Ten is Oregon and Ohio State. And I don't even think Penn State's there, except they keep winning. So if Penn State keeps winning, they're going to get to that top tier, and they have a shot to prove me wrong. Hell, I picked them to win the league last year, and we all saw how that worked. So, I mean, look, the idea here is I think Ohio State and Oregon have too many dudes for the rest of the guys in this league. But, yeah, I mean, I do think that there's a possibility that Oregon and Penn State could see each other in Indy as well. And I think that's going to be – and I think who wins that game, Mike, is the number 1 seed in the playoff. And at that point – you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out, which one of those teams is national championship caliber. And if you look at it, like I said before, I started this thing. if you're Illinois and you're looking at Oregon right now, they are so far in front of you in their development. But you can't lose sight of the fact that you've come so far since August 1st in your development of where you were starting fall camp and maybe even starting spring ball. Is that, I think Illinois has made an extreme amount of progress with the development of the guys that they have. Now they need to go get more dudes, because you saw the difference of guys with speed out in space, trying to play, and Illinois' defense trying to tackle them. A lot of the times it just does not go well. And if Illinois can't, make those tackles so that a majority of the game, Mike, people need to understand this. There's a point in which for 60 minutes, if you're Oregon and Illinois continues to make those tackles, like in the first half, and you're getting off the field and Illinois is controlling the football, at some point, Illinois, if they're talented enough and they're disciplined enough, can play this game in the mud. Play this game in the proverbial mud, play this game in the phone booth, and make it a Brett Bielema type game. It's why teams like Ohio State and Oregon, for that matter, they haven't gone yet, but and a Penn State, when they go to Iowa City and Iowa drags them into the proverbial mud for like a 15-12 game or whatever it is, when you know what I'm talking about,
yep.
That's what Illinois needs to be able to do, but you cannot do that unless you recruit dudes on the line of scrimmage and out on the perimeter that can go make tackles. That's what Iowa does. Iowa's got NFL guys in the secondary right now that they recruit. They send secondary guys in the NFL. Cooper DeJean is in the NFL right now, right? So that's what Illinois needs to start doing. They've sent, and I know people are yelling at me right now. Well, Devin Witherspoon and Quan Martin and Sidney Brown are in the NFL. That was 2 years ago, right? And so, they need to. Mac Resetich isn't ready to go to the NFL right now. Nobody thought he should be, based off of where his development is. But you need to start recruiting dudes that can play at the level of an Oregon and an Ohio State and a Penn State, so that you can get those games into the fourth quarter and prove you're a physically more intimidating football team. Because when you do that, that's when Brett Bielema's teams win those types of games. That's how he did it at Wisconsin, and that's how he won big games early on at Arkansas too. So that's what Illinois struggled to do, because you cannot do that, Mike, when you suddenly look up at the board and it's 28-3. And that's not how Illinois – that's how nobody can beat the number one team in the country. But that's certainly not how Illinois can beat the number one team in the country, because they're just not set up to do something like that.
Excellent. Well, I tell you what, Matt, thanks for getting on. We appreciate that. He's out in Oregon. He'll have a variety of articles over the next 3 days covering this game. So if there's ever a time to subscribe to Illini Guys, 27 cents a day. And of course, we'll have a podcast tomorrow talking about the scrimmage at Ole Miss. So we try to stay in front of you. It's all how much your eyes can stomach. That's something that we can't control. And
while I'm on a cross-country flight, y'all enjoy that. So I appreciate it. You guys have a good one, and I will see you guys later on this weekend. Appreciate it, Mike.
So you get the opportunity to subscribe to Illini Guys, and that will give you everything that you need to follow Illinois. So if you're looking to have a fun time and you want to enjoy your fandom with the Fighting Illini, we're the place to be. 27 cents a day. We haven't raised our prices since we started in the middle of the pandemic. Who's dumb enough to start a business in the middle of the pandemic? So we're there and ready for you. And we would also encourage you can get Eye on the Illini. Of course, you can subscribe to it at almost any podcast distributor. Please do that so you won't miss an episode. You can also subscribe to the Illini Guys Sports Spectacular. That's our weekly 2-hour sports show that's Illini-centric. Comes out on Thursdays or Fridays, and you can either listen to it on the radio or download it as a podcast. Same thing with our Big Ten show, Big Sports Radio. And, of course, on Sunday nights, Monday nights, I do a Mike Cagley's Heat Checks and Hail Marys, where I talk about things that have happened, usually with Big Ten and Illinois implications, but I will throw in guy stuff like movies, TV, wrestling, all sorts of things. But we'd love to have you be a part of that as well. And you can get a lot of our stuff on our IlliniGuys.com YouTube channel. And there's a lot to be had. And certainly we try to keep it positive. We try to have fun with everything. We do not want to add to your consternation. There's plenty of other media outlets that can make you angry, make you upset. We try not to do that. We try to have a good time. That's why you don't see us on the algorithm a lot, because we're not bitching and moaning about things. But we think you'll enjoy it. Please come and join us. Until tomorrow, go Illini.